Well, when you called me, I had just loaded my gun, and it was either go through with what I was doing or answer the call.
Angela, thanks for coming out today, man. I've heard a lot about your group on social media, Barracks Legend Foundation. You're doing a lot of work with veterans and active duty military.
Yep.
I'd like to hear more about, what your background is and how you got into this line of work.
I appreciate you guys having us on. Thank you so much, Seamus. You know, it's been a very interesting ride. I served 8 years in the Marine Corps, 2003 to 2011, and a lot of the things that I endured carried on into the transition, and I struggled with alcohol, drugs, suicide, and that kind of brought me to where, and we can dive into it too and stuff, but that's kind of where everything really started.
Yeah. It seems to be with a lot of guys I commissioned with or friends that are enlisted or whatever, it seems to be kind of a reoccurring theme with this generation. I mean, I think even not necessarily even the combat veteran community, but just across the board, there's a lot of stressors that people go through during that kind of work and that high intensity of stuff, especially at a young age where there's a lot of lingering stuff afterwards and not really taken care of necessarily. Like, what types of patterns have you noticed that Americans are not serving the veteran community? Like, what are the biggest things that they seem to be struggling with right now and could use more support and understanding on?
Veterans aren't broken. And if we look at what they're really struggling at, it's being accepted by people that don't have a full understanding of what they've endured. For years, I struggled with the transition. I mean, I got out in 2011. I didn't understand how bad my brain was damaged. I didn't understand how bad my sleeping was. All those things seemed so normal to me. If I go into, my deployment to Iraq, I suffered traumatic brain injury. And basically what TBI is for anyone is basically your brain is getting shuffled in your skull and there's some damage that's going on, right? Well, in close proximity to a M1A1 Abram tank, which is so many tons of just death and destruction, you're not supposed to be super close to it. And we were like 15, 20 meters. We're in a building next to it, and it's going off 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And the concussion of the blast, that's 1,500 Gs of force. The average concussion arrives at about, I want to say, between 75 and 90 Gs. And you do the math, we're taking in the equivalent of 100 concussions within an hour. And that's just for something like that. So these guys and girls that have endured not just that, but more, they get out not understanding why they're sleeping less than an hour a night. They can't understand why just, dropping a cup or spilling it, sets them off. Not being able to navigate arguments, because you tell me I'm wrong and I fly off the handles. It shouldn't be, and it's just a lot of it is because we haven't healed, and a lot of it is because we haven't unlearned how to be normal again.
It's a completely different structured system, a completely different structured culture. The way you're communicating and taking and receiving orders, it's a completely different culture system than the civilian system, 100%.
100. And one of the biggest things, and our COO, Natalia, is big on this, 3 things: purpose, direction, and structure, right? Purpose, camaraderie, and structure, right? You join, and I'll just go based off the Marine Corps. You join to go be a Marine Corps infantryman. Our purpose is to fight and win wars, right? The structure is the Marine Corps, and then you have the camaraderie of your brothers and sometimes sisters that are around you. You get out the Marine Corps, that's all gone. And you have to learn that. You got to find that again. And they give you the 3 or 4 day TAPS class, and that's never enough to reestablish the structure in your life. it's 3 days. What's that going to do? It took 4, 8. I mean, I did 8 years. 8 years of my life was learning how to fight wars or teaching people how to fight wars.
In a highly structured environment.
Yeah,
I mean, you're going
highly
from a
structured.
very young age out of high school where you're basically just a kid getting trained in a highly structured environment with a very specific type of structuring and regiment.
Yeah.
And you have a very clear purpose, clear mission set, then it's like figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. So that totally makes sense. And does that seem to be kind of a reoccurring
Yeah.
theme that you're seeing is just like all right, what next? What am I doing now? Because it's such a heavy identity too. It's a big identity for a lot of people.
Because you lose your identity. I'm leaving the Marine Corps as a squad leader, just for anybody. If I leave the Marine Corps being a squad leader, and now I'm not that leader anymore. And to find that structure, purpose, and camaraderie again, it's nearly impossible sometimes, unless you have other men and women that have experienced it and gone through it, which there are out there, but it's hard to find a lot of times. It's not easy. The military doesn't make it easy for you. You have to do it yourself. But when we do our events, we see the guys and girls that step up to help facilitate these things, and they're thriving because they're around the other like-minded individuals that have served just like them. There's a structure to how we do our events and the purpose. Our purpose obviously is veteran suicide prevention, and they more than likely have either come close to or came to a place where they thought about it.
And with men specifically, I had worked on a book that I didn't end up launching because the editors took it in a direction I really didn't want to go with it, talking about issues with substance abuse and suicide in young men. It's not just veterans. Right now, millennials, Gen Z, young men are dealing with a lot of serious amount of suicide, serious amount of substance abuse. So you already have that in the culture that's bad on top of what veterans are dealing with, especially with young men. And it seems to be, I mean, this is speculative, but the thesis I was going with, it's a lack of purpose because our foundation's kind of breaking down in the West a little bit right now.
Yeah.
You used to have religion, community, family. These things were very important, a specific identity of what it means to be a patriot in the West. All those things are kind of eroding right now. So average people are dealing with that kind of identity and purpose crisis right now, right across the board. It's a difficult time. I mean, for me personally, getting in touch with my faith was a really big deal. Yeah. And when I went through some kind of darker times with identity and stuff, to figure out like what's the point of it all? What's the point of life? What's my purpose as a man, right? And so I think it's a tough time culturally because we're entering a culture that's already kind of messed up and wounded, right? And so I don't know what communal solutions are you seeing that are the best to get, especially young male veterans, but also young female veterans, to get tapped into community, tapped into purpose. Like what are you seeing that's like communities and maybe types of jobs or other things, religion that's beneficial to these people across the board?
I look at, and I just want to hop on what you mentioned about suicide. I know 44 veterans a day take their lives, right? And I know a lot of people believe it was 22 and it's 44. With the statistics don't include are alcohol related and drug related. So drinking themselves to death, which a lot of veterans do, and drug overdoses. If you just remove that niche or that demographic of it being a veteran, suicide is skyrockets, right? It's just sad that it's 44 veterans a day, and also just as sad that females are almost 3 times more likely to take their lives in the veteran community. But if you remove that demographic, suicide just skyrockets because it really is a lack of purpose. It really is a lack of structure. A lot of it's loneliness too. And what I found for myself that I see a lot of veterans really kind of holding on to is my faith. I struggled. I never believed in God. I never believed in Jesus Christ. And getting out, I couldn't understand what was wrong with me. And a lot of it had to do with a moral compass. Yeah, I know I had traumatic brain injury and all this stuff, but a lot of the things I needed were in this moral compass in God. And I got that through AA. AA helped me get sober and clean. I've been sober and clean for 9 years. I had again, never believed in God, spirituality, none of this stuff. And I had a spiritual experience, like they say in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had an experience so significant that I could not shake the fact that God was real. And this has come from someone that lived a very, very pornographic life. I worked in nightclubs, I worked in strip clubs, I was a heathen in every sense of the word. And this God came down, met me where I was, changed my heart overnight. I went from working in nightclubs and strip clubs to youth ministry, big brothers, big sisters in a matter of months. And, taking that, creating a foundation like this, and sharing the love of God with these other veterans, because a lot of them just don't have that love. They just don't feel loved. And I get this a lot. I'm a big hugger. I hug all of them when I see them. And I have been told that the hug is where it's at because they're not receiving that anywhere. And it's not because I'm just a hugger. It's because I genuinely love this person. I have so much love in my heart for these men and women that I want to give them that same love that I feel, that same love that God provides for me. I want to share with them. It's one of my missions in life, is to love as many people as I can so they can come to know the God that saved my life and changed my life. And a lot of them, I see them come ask questions, they come to church, and I see spirituality, a lot more spirituality today than I did when I first got out in 2011. I see a lot more veterans coming to the events now than I did last year, a year before that, because I went from one event a year with the nonprofit I was with previously, which wasn't bad. It's just that's just what their mission is, the amazing mission. But I took that mission and said, okay, how can I make this even more efficient, and how can I make this even more effective? I said, there needs to be events consistently. So we started doing these events from shark dives to axe throwing that would draw these veterans out of isolation into community to improve mental health, prevent veteran suicide. And just this year alone, we've gone from, we were planning for 2 months, or 2 events in February, 2 events in March, 1 in April, and as of right now, we're at 14 events, and we're slotted for 50 by the end of the year, just in demand, right? Because now they see that there's events going on, and now they're just feeling so much love. Like, they feel loved, they feel embraced, they feel appreciated, and they feel the structure and they feel the purpose. Like, why am I coming here? I'm coming here because this is not just improving my mental health, but somebody else's, and this can prevent veteran suicide.
100%. Man, it's awesome that you're. That's so wonderful that you're, feeling this great need that we have for our culture and our vets and everything. And so glad to hear about where you're at on your faith journey and everything. Does there seem to be like a specific types of job environments and stuff? That's a big thing with identity and stuff. But what I found with the identity thing is it's like, we can't look at outside things because they fade. Like jobs end, things like that ends. So we have to kind of look almost towards deeper spiritual things a lot of the time to find our true identity. Right. But have you found that certain types of jobs or regions or cultures are better, have better community for these for a lot of the veteran community, or is it kind of a mixed bag?
I think it's kind of a mixed bag because it really does depend on, obviously finding faith, but really what's your purpose? My purpose didn't just come from doing the hikes. My purpose came because I made a call and I was told that there was a female veteran struggling, and I was like, all right, I'll reach out to her. Reached out to her. She would ghost a little bit just because she was in a really bad place. And I kept in contact with her for 2-3 months. Eventually, time came for the hike that I was doing with the nonprofit, and I called her the day before. It's like, hey, come out. I'll connect you with other female veterans. You'll have a fantastic time, I promise you. And she was like, I don't know. I was like, listen, it's hundreds of veterans just like us. I promise you, you're going to have the time of your life. How often do you get a chance to come be with other female veterans like you to go spend the day walking up and down the streets of Fort Lauderdale? She's like, okay, I'll come out. And she did. And I connected her with a bunch of awesome female veterans, and she had a time in her life, changed her life drastically. And I say that because 6 months later, we hosted one of the pilot events that we were trying to do, axe throwing, and she came and she sat next to me. At this point, we've became friends. And she's like, oh, I just want to thank you. I was like, oh, for what? She goes, for saving my life. And I was like, oh, stop. Not that I didn't appreciate it, but because I'm not in it for the recognition. I just genuinely love these guys and girls. And she told me, well, when you called me, I had just loaded my gun, and it was either go through with what I was doing or answer the call. And I answered your call. And this came at a time where I was already tired and I didn't want to do this anymore. And I was like, God, tell me what's next. And he re-solidified. Like, after that day, I doubled down on doing events because I realized how important this was. Because if I hadn't called her, she wouldn't be here. And if she wasn't here, she wouldn't be having this little girl that she's about to have any day now. Like, you just don't know. You don't know.
Trickle down effects. You don't know. You don't know the littlest things.
Yeah.
That can be extremely helpful to people like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, and completely changed the way I looked at this. I mean, that reinforced my purpose. That made me realize that I am supposed to be here, and I need to do more. No matter what I'm doing right now, no matter what school I'm doing, I need to be in the veteran space, sharing my story and sharing the love that I have.
That's awesome. What have you gotten any types of hobbies or disciplines and stuff other than AA and your faith? Like, what do you have? Like, is physical fitness big for you? Like, what kind of keeps you structured and stuff?
Well, I'm in chiropractic medical school.
Oh, wow.
As well. So that's pretty much.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, it's a lot of time. Thank God for Natalia being amazing at what she does, but majority of the time it's either school, foundation, and fitness. I've just been in a place where we've been doing so much that it's kind of fallen to the side. So we've been really working on eating real healthy, which traveling doesn't help. But
how did you guys meet? How did this whole organization get started? What was the initial thing that led you guys to?
Yeah, so I was speaking at a fundraiser, and she just happened to be there. She was invited by one of our mutual friends, and after I spoke, she was moved. Didn't realize that veterans were dying at the rate they were, and Natalia has a fantastic podcast. We have two podcasts. She has one that she's been doing for a few years now, amazing Buckle Up podcast, and she invited me on to be one of the speakers, and between that time frame, we were able to talk and hang out, and she told me, hey, why don't you start your own nonprofit? Like, you're doing everything that a nonprofit does, but you're doing it for somebody else. And I was like, I don't know, I just haven't. I've never had the right people to be around me, because trust me, I've tried to do this before, and people just show you your true colors. And I was like, I just never had the right people. And
it's 100%. It's so important to get any type of. I've been in the entrepreneurial space for a couple of years now, and getting the right people around you, the right support, figuring out what they're all about, figuring out. Sometimes people are wonderful human beings, but their capabilities and their skill set's not great.
Yeah.
So evaluating what is their skill set, and then what do they want? What's their motivation? What's their morality like?
That's a big one.
That's a huge one. But sometimes I found too, like, what this guy's they're a wonderful human being, great, but they're just not, they don't have the skills that we need to do it. So It's hard, but
Yeah.
it takes a lot of perseverance, a lot of consistent networking, and putting yourself out there to meet people consistently. And
Yeah, and I had already been in that space. I was raising money for other nonprofits already. I was working with another Marine for a little while, and one of the biggest things that we learned in this space is people want you to do good, but not better than them.
100%, 100%. I ran a nonprofit for a little bit. It is extremely like it can get a little envious and
Yeah.
competitive and stuff. Yeah.
And when people show you their true colors, right? And they do it in so many different ways that you have to pay real close attention, because it took us a while to really sift out who was really about it and who wasn't. And let me tell you, we've had to vote off board members, which Natalia and I have no control over that. We take the situation and we go, hey, this is what happened. These are the emails. What do you guys want to do? And our board goes, okay, this is what we'll do. We've had to cut out people that have been on our team with ulterior motives. Friends, really close friends that have basically sabotaged events. And it's been such a eye-opener, because what started with all these people going, yeah, we want you to do great, turned out to just be Natalia and I 99% of the time. And our fantastic board. Our board's amazing. And of course our sponsors. So
How many years in are this from start to where you're at now?
Years in, as in
How long have you been going at this project, like building up for this?
the Barracks Legend Foundation? A year.
Yeah.
A year. Because I was with Irreverent Warriors. They're an amazing organization. I did their hikes for 3 years, South Florida. That's where I met Donnie O'Malley. And we started Barracks Legend, really planted the seed around April, and then we filed it May 15th of last year. So it's been just a year that we've really been hooking and jabbing. And
It's going to get better and better too.
oh, it is. It's interesting too, because a lot of times we'll feel a little defeated sometimes, but it's just because, and I look at it this way so often, is if things don't happen the way we want, it's because it wasn't supposed to happen that way. And we've had so many times where things didn't go the way we wanted, and all of a sudden this surprise gift popped up, or an event was supposed to happen and it fell through because of somebody that was not on our side, basically. And all of a sudden now we have someone like Cubo Tacos that holds a fundraiser yearly, and they chose us to be the charity of choice.
Yeah, we ran my buddy and I, a great friend of mine, his father was actually just on a podcast earlier today, right before you guys were here. But I ran this nonprofit in Colorado called True Colorado for a long time. And Colorado's had a ton of people move there in recent years and really lost its culture. So we were like, what if we did like educational media videos on what it means to be a real Coloradan, what the culture is all about? And it's really great. People are really excited about this. And it was slightly political. We were involved with some people that were at political think tanks and stuff. I didn't really understand that local politics world, and I thought, oh, it's not DC, it'll be fine. And there was a lot of people that were like, you do this for us, you do this free work for us, and bring us in money and whatever. We will put these videos you're doing on television, or we'll do this, this, and this. There was verbal agreements, make us all these promises. They didn't want us to be successful. They'd be slandering us, shit talking us, like all that behind our backs. It was like, what can we bleed these guys out for while we fuck them over, right? And it was just a ton of that, and it was so it's doing good stuff in the nonprofit sector is hard. It's like religion too. I was with a priest the other day, and we're talking about pilgrimages, and he's like, look, there's going to be a bunch of great people that are there for the right reasons, but there's also going to be some predators. And it's like any church is going to have good people and predators, people that want to manipulate you with religion, or that want to use you for money, or use you for clout, or sexual stuff, or whatever. Yeah. there's always going to be a certain amount of those people, but I feel like the longer you stick to the path and meet better people and get around that solid team and make the team better and better, the easier it gets over time.
Oh yeah,
100%.
We've experienced so much. I mean, obviously, voting board members off. We again didn't expect it. These are things that just we did not expect to happen. But you know, when you are able to take time away from people and look at them from a distance, you get to see who they really are. And I mean, we've experienced that just in the last few weeks, and we're like, this is why this happened. And it's always going to be for the best for the foundation. It's the best thing that could happen to the foundation. Not for me, not for her. It's the best thing for the foundation. Everything that is right for the foundation, that's what comes first. And if this person isn't it, perfect. Whatever it takes to get the foundation and the mission further.
So, 18 years old, you graduate 18 or 19. You graduate
18.
in high school. What drew you to join the Marine Corps initially? What was the initial?
You know, it's funny because I did not have any real intention of joining the military. I was pretty oblivious to what was really happening in life. But my best friend Ricardo, I just saw yesterday. He came up to me at lunch and he was like, "Hey, I just signed up for the Marine Corps. You want to join? Want to go with me? Be on the buddy program?" And I was like, "I guess so." No idea what I was doing. No idea. So came to the recruiting office, met Staff Sergeant Gallimore, and he was in his Charlies. Yeah, he was in his Charlies. So I didn't see the full jacket. But he was like, "I'll tell you what, I'll come to meet your parents. We'll talk, and we'll see if you've got what it takes to be a Marine." Because you go to Marine Corps office and you say, "I want to join," they don't just do the, yeah, join. They're like, "You don't want this. You can't do this." It's all reverse psychology. They mess with you. But came to my house and I saw them in dress blues. I was sold. Dress blues.
Look squared away. They
Sold.
look like warriors.
Oh,
man.
yeah. Sold. I was like, I want that. I want that and more. And sure enough, the day I went to boot camp, 1 year later, I was in Iraq. Everything he said was 100% accurate. He was like, a year from the time you go to boot camp, you'll be in Iraq. And I landed in Iraq, or I landed in Kuwait the day before my 1 year mark, and then that next day we were in
What year was that?
2003 or 2004. I'm sorry, 2004.
So it's right before the surge, or right around the time of that? That was earlier.
The surge. No, well, there was a surge in 2008.
Oh yeah, it was a lot later than that. Sorry.
Yeah, I got down there to Iraq.
That was really early Iraq then.
Yeah, that was when Fallujah and all that was.
Phantom Fury and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was in Phantom Fury. So the first Fallujah had happened, and then the insurgency broke out, and then we did Phantom Fury end of October through December 15th.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow, in the thick of it.
Oh yeah.
How many deployments did you do in all?
Two.
One to Iraq or two to Iraq? Or?
One to Iraq, and then the second one was on the 24th MEO.
What's that?
It's a Marine Expeditionary Unit.
So you were like on a naval ship?
Yeah, we were on the Iwo Jima, went over to Africa, Europe area.
What ports did you hit when you were doing that?
We stopped in, let's see, we were at City Vecchi. It was Toulon, France. There was a port, Civitavecchia. I'm butchering it. We ported in Jordan. We did a stop in Cyprus. It wasn't really a port, but we ended up in Djibouti, Africa, and then we stopped in, I believe, Kuwait for a few weeks.
Was that more of a chill deployment compared to kind of a heavy combat deployment, or?
Yeah, it was a lot more chill, but leadership was a little more. It was very different. Going from
heavy combat
to it's a whole different atmosphere. Same guys for the most part, but the leadership had changed, and it just wasn't. It wasn't the greatest. Everyone that came back from Iraq, we were all messed up. We're all We had something like 90 drug pops in the battalion.
What's that?
90 drug pops.
Oh, drug pops.
Yeah, 90.
And did they all get NJP'd, or was it kind of just
A lot of
knocked out?
them. A lot of them are NJP'd, but no one asked any questions. No one asked what was going on. No one asked why is this happening, and I knew a little bit.
Was that the battalion level?
Yeah, they were. It's Fallujah. You had guys that were meritorious corporals, meritorious sergeants, guys that receive NAMs at Vs, Navy comms at Vs, Bronze Stars at Vs that popped on drug tests because they were fucked up. They watched their friends die. Their friends died in their arms, and no one really asked what was wrong. And I struggled, but I didn't understand it until I got out. But I look back at it and, watching my friends just cry, just mental breakdown, and everyone just kind of blow him off like he's a shitbag. And it's just because he hadn't.
You're young at that age too. You're so young, You're so young at that age. It's like, it's crazy. Like I look at like pictures of young privates and stuff now. Yeah. I mean, they're young guys, right? So it's like, it's a lot, right?
Yeah. If you look at like a picture of before we went and after, you can see a
difference.
Very stark difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the guys were really banged up when we got back, and no one asked questions. In fact, no one asked questions to a lot of us until like 2009 after I re-enlisted. Mm-hmm. The officer candidate school. I taught there for a little while, and this is kind of plays into why veterans struggle so much, because they sat down and asked us what we experienced, and they didn't believe us.
Yeah, no, I feel that, and then the buddy fucker culture sometimes too, where there's like it's mixed bag. There's good guys, there's bad guys, and there's you give, I don't know. It's there's definitely some guys I commissioned with and knew other officers in DC. I was like, these are really bad guys, right? And there's some really amazing good guys. It's a mixed bag, right? So it's like, and relating some of those experiences to the average person, they're just not going to get it.
No,
I think you're nuts or whatever. So there's a barrier, right? Yeah. There's a barrier between that world and what people are going to get. What do you see? Are you seeing generational differences with how old are you now?
38.
So with your age versus some of the younger guys or tail end Afghanistan and stuff, are you seeing generational differences with how guys deal with stuff or how they adapt with that 10-year kind of gap?
If there's any difference, I would say they're getting lonelier, a lot more lonely.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's interesting you say that, because that's Gen Z is like and Gen Z and the young millennials, that's like a big thing for them. Yeah. They're in the
hooked.
Culture too.
They're hooked on their phones a lot.
Yeah.
Everything's text message.
They live through social media, and social media is so bad for you. I mean, they have social scientists, the PhD psychologists, where they're like, how do we make this more addicting? How do we manipulate people with their emotions to like this propaganda instead of this propaganda? These phones are terrible for people. They're not living in the moment.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a false reality.
I didn't have a cell phone until I was 19, and all my conversations were person to person with my friends. It was rare that I even sent a text message. But now, text message, there's no more of that intimate connection. There's no more of that face-to-face. It's all text message or DMs or, back then I had to go bang on my buddy's door, see what he's doing. Let's go out. Let's go do something. Let's go do this. Let's go lift weights, where today it's all text. There's no real heart-to-heart connection.
There's a guy we had on the podcast recently, really cool dude. So he lived in Hong Kong, was like kind of international businessman of mystery. He married this awesome woman from Hong Kong, and him and his family moved here after the Chinese took Hong Kong over. CCP took it over. I shouldn't say Chinese. And he's worked on this awesome cigar shop on King Street. It's a really cool spot. His whole thing is no phones. If I see you on the phone, I'm going to boot you out. It changes the environment, right? Like no cussing in front of women in here, dress up, no yelling, or I'm going to boot you out. Creates a completely different experience than any social setting I've been to because people aren't on their phones.
Right.
And it's like, how do you create more of that in social environments where it's like, hey man, that could even be a cool thing for events that you do, like, hey, we're gonna hang out and talk and stuff. There's gonna be no phones allowed.
Yeah.
It's more people are starting to do it. Certain country clubs, other places, no pictures, no phones. Completely changes how people operate. Yeah.
Live in the moment.
100%.
Because this isn't forever.
No.
Like isn't gonna last forever. And if I sat here on my phone, I'd lose the entire purpose of this podcast. It's the same thing for like sitting down talking to somebody. You know, like Natalia's not going to be here forever. I'm not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
Like, why would I ruin it by just living on my phone when I can have this connection or
Posting everything.
Everything.
They're more excited to post something.
Yeah.
Than live in that
For
moment.
the gratification.
Yeah.
For the instant gratification.
Yeah. It's weird, and it's not everyone's fault. We've been indoctrinated by these tech systems, and so if you're speaking to, your average Joe, or I'm going to say your average Joe and your average business owner, average guy that's maybe a little more active in the community, what could people be doing to reach out to vets right now and support the veteran community? Like what's the, I guess, speak to someone that has a little bit of influence, someone that's maybe doesn't have that much influence. What can they do to help out? And
well, one of the things that we really, really focus on is volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have money to help support us. Everyone has something they bring to the table. Everyone has a skill or skill set that they can help us with. Volunteering, dedicating your time, donating your time to us to come be a part of the community, be a part of facilitating the event. If you're someone who owns a business, obviously monetary is great, but we don't always ask for money. We look for ways to we find unique ways, creative, unique ways to partner. We have one of our sponsors, Modern Rose, a boutique coffee shop that created the Barracks Legend drink, and 20% of that purchase goes to our foundation. Things like that, just finding unique ways to meet us where we're at and to help support those businesses and those people. Because a lot of times we find that nonprofits that receive donations or just things in general, they're not great at reciprocating.
Who's good at, like, I feel like sometimes, like I'll talk to guys that are getting out there and pretty cool stuff. Like there's a lot of MLSs. It's like you get really unique skills.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the government, especially when the government's involved, the transitional stuff, they do such a shitty job at like, what skills do you have? I mean, if you have any kind of leadership experience, even on the enlisted side, infantry, it's like, oh, infantry, all you can do is be a cop. It's like, that is such bullshit. The amount you learn about personal development, leadership, logistical structure, operational planning. Just if you remember how to write an op order and plan an operation, do you know how ahead of the game you are at applying that to planning other things in business and other things like that?
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff, right? So it's like, how can we get better at figuring out what skills do you have? And I'd rather have, someone that's worked for a while in the military than a kid with a college degree that fucked off and partied for 4 years. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
100%. I'd rather hire that guy all day as a business owner. I'd rather hire someone that, has that actual real world working experience. But like, who's doing a good job of kind of figuring out, like, how can we break this person's passion, skills, and experience down to finding a job or creating a business? Have you seen anyone that's good at helping them kind of pump them up and figure out, hey, here's you might not even know what skills you have that are applicable to this stuff?
I mean, I know there are two organizations for sure. One's Brian Stan's I think it's Hire Heroes. Mm-hmm. He was a Marine Corps captain, fought in the USC and MMA world. I know he has one, and they helped me with my resume when I got out. They were like, you have a lot of leadership skills. Did you not realize that translates to more than just being a cop or a firefighter, which, by the way, those
are great jobs. Very
Amazing
important
jobs,
yeah.
right?
And we need good cops and firefighters right now, desperately. I'm not putting it down.
But if you don't want to be a cop or a firefighter, you have so many skills and sets of skills or skill sets that translate to so much more. Project management, operational management, like all these things that you just have to learn how to translate them. Hire heroes, recruit military. Those guys are doing great jobs at helping veterans transition and letting them know, hey, you have a skill set that is more than just a door kicker.
And even going down the rabbit hole a little bit, understanding the nature of how politics and government work a little bit more. I mean, not being, especially if you've been a little more seasoned, done a few more years, been in the right places. It's like, you kind of understand. You can sniff bullshit a little bit more a lot of the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like that's a huge thing. The wisdom you get from that experience might not necessarily be even a positive experience, but there's positives to be learned from the suffering sometimes. You know what I mean?
We went to a conference a few weeks back, and anytime someone goes, I'm not going to make this political, they're trying to make it political. They're trying to make it for whatever side they're on, and they're talking about how, we secured all these funds for female veterans to get access to this and veterans to get access to this. And I'm sitting there thinking in my head, I'm like, you have all that money, but how hard is it going to be for that female veteran to gain access to that money? Or does she have to jump through hoops?
Or does she have to be like this personality type and this political type to get access to that? Because that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. Like, do you fit into my narrative so you can get the services that I want, and I can mold you into what I want?
Because everything and again, the VA it's a mess sometimes. There are some fantastic people that work there, and I understand that they're overwhelmed and understaffed, but it's hard for veterans to hear they have all this money for all these things, but it's hard to gain access to it. If my appointments, if I call in for an appointment and the appointment's not available for 6-7 months, right? That's hard. Community care is great. They open the doors to that. But if you're a politician and you're telling me you have $8 million for these services, but that veteran has to jump through hoops to get it, defeats the whole purpose of receiving those things.
And sometimes the time, right? Like the time of, hey, I've got a job, a family, or whatever. I got a job. But throwing out a hypothetical here, you've got a job, a family, all these obligations. It's like, okay, you got to spend 6 days dealing with this bureaucracy. It's almost not worth it sometimes for some guys to do that. That seems to be a reoccurring thing I've heard time and time again, and experienced myself, where it's like, I really don't want to go spend 7 days tracking down some paperwork somewhere when it's not really worth it at the end, right? So it's like, but I feel like especially the GWOT veterans have such a unique perspective on like where we're at as a country, how things operate. There's a lot of wisdom that needs to be shared with the current generation of Americans, right? It's not just cool stories and stuff, right? It's not what it is. There's so much about the nature of like how things work, where we're at as a country, how government works, whatever. There's so much wisdom to be handed down. It's a bummer when some of these guys shut themselves off from the world, and I understand why they do. But it's like, I feel like that's a huge purpose. It's like this class of people who generally across the board really want to serve, patriotic, care about their country, and they have deep knowledge that can help out the rest of the country. That is a huge purpose, massive purpose that the country is really struggling in this time of division and stuff right now. They could use. You know?
I mean, I look at my nephew who joined last August, and he's over in Japan right now, and just giving him wisdom, just passing on just things that I knew, and of course it's obviously a different time frame. It's 20 years apart, but a lot of the things that I share with them still are true, right? You're made to stand out. Stay fit. Your active duty. Stay fit. Like, know what your job is, in and out. know your job and 2 ranks above it. You know, sharing that kind of knowledge, because that's what kept me prepared. That's what kept me good at my job. Just sharing that. And I wish more guys that were in my position, or more guys just in general that serve, were doing that and giving those kind of tidbits to these guys.
So where can people find out about your work? How can they support you? Are you guys like regionally focused, nationally focused? Like how do people get involved and find out more about what you're doing to help out?
So we're primarily based out of South Florida. I'm in Boca. So if anyone wants to check out our events, you go to barrackslegendfoundation.com, go to our calendar, and we've got tons of events coming up. Or on Instagram, Barracks Legend Foundation, same thing. Facebook, same thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today. This was a real pleasure, and I'd love to meet up again and check out some of your events maybe.
Yeah, absolutely, Seamus. Thank you so much, bro.
Thanks, man.